Okay. Hello, welcome to our live webinar here from beautiful Arequipa, the White City in southern Peru. We're glad that all of you are joining us for a webinar. This may be your first time, and we're hoping that you're going to enjoy it today and ask lots of questions and interact. Our topic today is Planning an Immersion English Institute for Pre-Service and In-Service Teachers. And I'm Debra Burgess. I'm a Senior English Language Fellow here at Arequipa at the Binational Center, which is the Centro Cultural PeruanoNorteamericano. And I also work with two colleagues who I'm going to have introduce themselves and where they work.
Hi, my name is Steffany. I teach at San Francisco School and also at the university, so I have experience with kids and young adults.
Hello, my name is Verónica Huamán. I'm working now in the Pedagogical Institute of Arequipa, working with future teachers that want to be like us.
And I want to comment that both my colleagues and I have been involved in planning and implementing two immersion institutes here in Peru. And so we're going to be sharing that information with you today, our experience, and we're hoping to get some of your experience as well. And so my colleague Veronica on the next slide is going to start with a question.
Yes, so the next slide says, talking heads. So the question for you is this: what opportunities do your students have to practice English with native speakers outside of the classroom in authentic situation? So maybe Steffany, can you tell us what about you?
Okay, here in Arequipa, there are not a lot of opportunities to practice with American speakers, but sometimes you can practice with tourists, but it's not the same. When you're in an immersion institute, you have the opportunity to speak the whole day in English. Even when you're sleeping, you can dream in English.
Yeah.
But every day is like kind of difficult to find that opportunity. What about you guys? Do you have any opportunities to, in your countries, your students have the opportunity to practice with native speakers?
So yeah, so you know, in this case, my students also have kind of weaknesses because they just have the chance to work in school or maybe at classes, and they have ways of sharing ideas and maybe exchanging language. But what happens when they are outside in the street or maybe in other places, or nothing happens? So this is maybe could be a nice idea to share experiences and also to practice a lot of what they are learning.
Yeah, just so Debra, you?
So yeah, I noticed that at the Cultural, many of our students, when I would go and speak to them as a native speaker, instantly they don't talk, they don't feel like you know, they're afraid, they're frightened, they're intimidated by a native speaker. And you know, teachers there also, there are few opportunities to actually practice with a native speaker. You know, we don't want them running down to the Plaza de Armas and catch a gringa.
Yeah.
There are quite a few here in visiting in Arequipa.
Yeah, it is common. So when sometimes we have a stranger, maybe like bring yourself, so we say, yeah, the opportunities, and we go and try to establish a maybe conversation or maybe just ask and answer questions about how is my English right now.
But it's just for a few minutes, right? In an immersion institute, it's like the whole day, the whole week, depending on the days.
So maybe we'll move on. Next slide.
Okay, next.
While we're waiting, and if you have comments, you can.
Sure.
Anytime.
Yeah. So for working, obviously, our Immersion Institute, we have goals to follow. The first is we follow this: learn to design and implement a 3 or 5 day theme-based immersion institute for pre-service and in-service teachers. And the second one is to explore best practices that focus on communicative approaches, integrated language skills, and culturally relevant lessons. So that's the area. So maybe Debra, you can say about these areas. Any other comment?
Okay. So on the next slide, we're going to talk about. So these are the goals that we really have for you today. We hope that you'll come away with some, you know, knowing a little bit about how to put together a theme-based immersion program, and also how to, what are some of the strategies that we use. So we started out with the question, why an Immersion Institute? Why did we come up with this idea? Well, we've already mentioned that in our conversation that there are few opportunities for our students really here.
Yeah.
I know at the Cultural we only have 2 native speakers, and I think it's even less at UNSA and Pedagogico and some of the private school or public schools. So teachers and students don't have that opportunity to often interact in the target language and gain communicative and social confidence. So more than anything, one of the things we really want for our students is that they have the confidence to be able to produce language. Not that it's actually perfect all the time, but they have that competence. And as we mentioned earlier, there's little exposure to the target language. So in my first few months here, when I was observing in Cultural, and I was observing in Pedagogico, and I was talking to teachers in UNSA, and talking to students, that came up. And so we had an inspiration, as you can see on the next slide, between basically 2 of my colleagues. On the next, we came up with this genius. You know, Thomas Alva Edison said, well, genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. And so my 2 colleagues that are not here but were very, very instrumental in implementing and bringing this whole process together. Evelyn Guillen at Universidad Nacional San Agustin here in Arequipa, who runs academic programs in the English department there, and Elia Morales at Pedagogico, who is one of our key contacts. We thought, what could we do? What could we do to really create the situation? So we had that inspiration, and as you can see on the next slide, it took not only there were several people working together, myself, the Senior English Fellow, Relos Andes, the Embassy, the ISPA below, which is the Pedagogico, the UNSA, and then the Cultural was also very instrumental in giving me the time and giving us the opportunity and a lot of the resources. So we decided that we would take some limited funding that I had, and we would put together a situation, what was an immersion program. And so that's where the process began. We began and we wrote, we began by, of course, you have to write a proposal to everyone. Okay. So we got together and we put that proposal together. We were able to get it through the Embassy, Relo Andes, basically from the Embassy. UNSA, we presented it because we wanted the support of everybody. And we put together a budget, and in that budget, some of my funding, but also the university, Cultural, ISPA, all gave in-kind services, either facility. We're going to talk about that a little further. So before we move on to the next slide, I think Steffany wanted to mention that.
Yeah, I want to mention that David, Gisela, and Viviana, hello guys. They're saying hello. They're from Nazca, they're from Trujillo, and they're from Costa Rica.
Wow, welcome.
Welcome.
Long way away.
So the next question is for you guys.
Okay.
Next slide.
Okay.
So the question is, what kind of issues?
Go ahead.
Yeah, continue. What kind of issues or obstacles might you need to consider in your planning? When you're planning this kind of immersion institute, what kind of obstacles might you need to consider? For example, Veronica, in our experience, what kind of issues did we have in this process?
Well, you know, planning is hard for us because we need to take care of the context we have, the students we have also, and what instruments and also materials we are able to use. So planning is important because students are going to be the goal for all of this. So that's important when we are working a lesson, an activity, or any kind of just lesson plan. for the purpose of themselves, not just maybe us.
Another issue could be also the time. Okay, the time that the Immersion Institute is going to be, right? For example, we had a 3-day Immersion Institute and a 5-day immersion, so it's kind of different kind of answer that we have from the students. Okay, so next slide. Beginning with the end in mind, Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Students gain communicative and social confidence in English. Also, the students learn how to make a lesson plan. The teachers also learn from this Immersion Institute because it's not just the students who learn. So we also learn in the process a lot, way a lot. So it's like we learn how to curricular and model and implement appropriate lessons using communicative activities, because every day we don't practice a lot with communicative approach. It's just writing or reading, but what our students need is to communicate, especially orally. Then another thing that teachers learn in that Immersion Institute is that lessons that are culturally relevant, how to integrate Peruvian culture and American culture, so the students can see the both sides and learn from real information about our country and the state. Next slide. Do you have any comments?
Yeah, yes, please. Until that, we want to also maybe comment. We have an idea that Frank sent us, and he is a student, and he says that it may be difficult for students to practice English because they are not authentic English practice around us. He says also that maybe internet can help us, but maybe working in other groups could be nice. So that's true. Obviously, as a student, we have less opportunities because we are just maybe classes and we are immersing our studies, but we need to find opportunity. And maybe this is a chance that we are looking for. The institute in our cities could be nice to organize this kind of work. Maybe, Debra?
Yeah, one of our students in this institute, because the name of the camp was Camp Joy, and the idea came from all of this stuff. And one of our students says, Carlos Choquehuanca from Arequipa says, in my opinion, we as English teachers have to focus not only on teaching English, but also how this language could be applied and how it is going to change their lives. You know, the word teacher globalizes a lot of words. So in this case, not just teaching English in that immersion camp, we teach a lot of things. We taught different kind of stuff. So what do you think about Carlos Choquehuanca's opinion, Veronica?
Yeah, that's real. So teaching English, it's not just maybe a moment that we need to follow our lesson planning, but also it's something that we need to be involved in. I mean, working with the students, it's alive. So it's working with a group of people. And that's the idea that it changed our way of living. So day by day we are improving, and that's why maybe Carlos mentioned, as students and also as teachers, we're improving because these opportunities help us to go more than we are in this moment.
Next slide.
Okay, I want to go back a few slides if I can, and back to maybe 4 slides back to perspiration, because we talked about inspiration.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was perspiration, I have to say. This group was very involved from the beginning. And as I mentioned, we did a proposal and a presentation, but the planning process is probably the most crucial part that they've been talking about.
Yeah,
and we're going to talk a little more about that. So we did a lot of planning. We actually did the first institute in the first week of February with about 65 students. So we had to do a lot of planning. The staff came together that were handpicked. There were 14 of us on staff. We had to pick a location, which was very important. We'll talk a little more about that. Recruiting students. We had to go to the university and recruit students at the university and also at Pedagogico. So that was, we had to sell the program to not only the instructors and the teachers, but we also had to recruit staff. And these are two of our staff. Verónica and Steffany were two that were recruited, because our idea was to really help the program at the university, the Pedagogico, and also at Cultural, to teach teachers you know, some of these strategies and approaches. As I mentioned before, we had to come up with a budget, and I can't speak as well for the 3-day because the embassy funded a lot of that, but our budget, I took out of my funds, and the students also contributed, which we felt was very important that they put something in. We had to decide about food and scheduling. And so, so then I want to jump back to that Summer's End, that slide we were just on, and talk about that.
Yeah, we have a comment about with this idea. Says Viviana Rosas Bravo. Something that he mentioned is that sometimes we don't know what type of activities included in our lesson plannings. So she says that activities where they can learn, but at the same time enjoy what they are learning. So this is a good idea and commentary. But for example, in our institute, we were, as Steffany says before, we were exchanging ideas about culture. So we exchange ideas that we manage here in Peru, and also that ones that come from that language that we are learning that from America. So this is maybe one idea we can share and we can notice. Maybe Steffany?
Maybe we also can include activities that we need to talk, and also when we use our hands. And when they use hands on, they have a lot of fun because it's better. They relax and they learn. So activities with crafts, for example, are good for this.
And Debra, please.
Okay, so we came together as a staff. We finally got the staff together. It was a very, very wonderful group of people because we had native speakers and non-native speakers. We recruited from, we had the help from the Access Camp, our good colleague and other ELF buddy up in Tarapoto, Ryan Brooks. We also had an Access teacher come from Robert from Lima, who had participated in Access camps for students. Our focus is a little different. You may have been participated in the Access camps. Even though we chose a camp-like theme, our focus was really geared towards more of teaching and lesson design for future teachers and current teachers. So while we used the camp theme, we really had a little different focus. But anyway, our group came together. We had instructors from UNSA, instructors from Pedagogico, instructors from Cultural. We had Access students that came, alumni that actually came and worked with us. And we spent about 6 weeks prior to camp, prior to the institute, in our first institute, working together to come up with, first of all, getting everybody on the same page, knowing what we were going to do and what our purpose was. We also had, UNSA instructors, I mentioned that. And then we decided we needed a theme, a unifying theme. And so we looked at different themes, and we came up with the camp theme. And then our overriding vision was that school's out and learning is in. And I think what Steffany and Verónica mentioned, that it's got to be fun. So we really wanted it to be fun, hands-on, and we needed also to make it good for the staff and start looking at what their skills were and what their strengths were and what they really wanted to be able to contribute. And so what we did is every day, and we'll get into more of the daily routine, but we chose a theme for every day. And we started out with travel on day 1, and
then culture 2.
Culture 2. And day 3, environment. And day 4 was leadership. And then day 5 was bringing it all, the conclusions, and bringing everything together. And so we had that as moving kind of from concrete, hands-on things with culture embedded and leadership embedded throughout, And then we brought all of that together. So if you want to go on to the next slide.
Next. So now, guys, we have this theme, the travel and culture, but we know there are a whole range of themes or ideas to make an immersion camp. So, what themes or topics would you choose to organize an immersion institute in your country? Because it depends on the country, it depends on the social events that are happening in that place, it depends on the month, it depends on the date, important dates that you can plan and organize an immersion institute. So tell us about topics. For example, Debra, tell us some ideas about topics for an immersion institute.
Well, I've done these immersion institutes in the United States the other way around. I've done them with English teachers who are working with children who speak Spanish that want to learn Spanish. So I've done immersion camp programs in the summer with those teachers, and we've used different themes. For many years I did it. And sometimes it would be traveling to another country. We take a road trip, and we go to different cities in Mexico, or we'd start out on a plane. One time we even did Don Quixote in Sancho Panza, and it was wonderful. So every year our team got together and we came up with something that we could work around with the students. That was a topic that was high interest, culturally relevant usually, and worked with that.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Don Quixote. We can choose a topic from any book. We can immerse on that book, read the book, and make all the institute about that book. What about you, Verónica?
Yeah.
Any idea that you have?
Sure, we are in Peru and we have a lot of culture that maybe we can share, like Inca's empire could be one idea about historical events, but also we can share about holidays perhaps, and maybe just ideas about life that young people, in this case our students, like. And yes, that's right, Johnny. Great teachers never stop learning. That's really a nice idea, but also it's real because we are always working in the morning, in the afternoon, a whole day.
Yeah, during this camp, I learned a lot of things, and we never learn, as you said, Johnny. We learn every day. Every time that we talk with our students, we learn more about them, about their interests. So that I think it's important to talk with them, to know them, and that's how we are going to get into the theme. Because if we know the students, we are going to know what they want, and if we know what they want, they are going to have fun because we are doing what they enjoy. Yeah.
And in our first group, it was a little different group than our second group. Our first group was a very mixed group, mixed ability levels of English, because we had from second year to fifth year pre-service students, and then we had new teachers from Cultural.
Yeah, sure.
In our 3-day institute, we were able to handpick more and have 4 to 5 fourth and fifth year students. So with a little higher level that we're also had a little more experience.
We have a variety of students of different levels, and they learn from each other.
Absolutely.
They share a lot of ideas. For example, one of our students was Tanya, and she said, "My experience at Camp Joy was so fantastic because I learned many topics and different dynamics that each teacher showed, because each teacher has different style. Some of the teachers were, whoa, you're laughing all the time, and other students were more like practical things and other things with activities with hands. So from every kind of personality that we have, they learn different kind of activities depending on their own personality, because it's not just like, I am shy and I'm going to force myself to be laughing all the time, because I can be a great teacher just with being shy, being calm, and I can teach different kind of stuff. So this girl says that she learned a lot from our different kind of styles.
Yeah, thank you.
Next slide.
So the other idea we want to share for you is that we have type of production. What we want to follow in this Immersion Institute is that we need to reinforce in that skills that are productive for students. So in this case, writing and speaking. So that's why during the whole week we program this. On Monday, for example, we program that informative writing. So students need to write about ideas that maybe they can mention about that topic. On Tuesday, the second day, they also were producing. They were writing, but the topic were maybe changing about narrative writing. And inside that, they were saying ideas about storytelling, stories, maybe experiences, or maybe anecdotes they have. The next day, that was Wednesday, they have, for example, a persuasive writing, or maybe speeches they want to share, or ideas about personal experiences. The following day, that is Thursday, they have the discursive, and also maybe a kind of informative, or perhaps also kind of the same as before, the persuasive speech, because they need to produce, is what we want to program. And the last day, about the work that they did the whole week, they program, or we program, the students have reflective and maybe educational writing. So that's the idea about this immersion camp. They want to produce, is what we want to emphasize in students, because in classes, maybe they don't have the opportunity to do that. So that's why it was important for us. And also, yes, Emma Raquel says that this immersion institute maybe is a good experience. Sure, it was a really nice experience for us, because we were maybe implementing new ideas for our daily classes. And this, for example, writing process was really amazing for the students, because they were freely writing what they were thinking about.
They did journal writing every day.
Sure.
Every day they had journal writing.
Sure. They were sharing the ideas about that, and were exchanging their feelings, and also their maybe points of view that were sometimes different. So, next slide. Well, we have there the daily schedule and the topics that we have programmed. And the first was, in this case, the travel work. So we want to show with this daily schedule what a day looks like. So you know that we have 5 classes, and we have there programming several activities and several topics. And you know that Debra mentioned the topics that were in a variety of. We were making, for example, the first step was assembly, everybody together, so working together as a whole group. And then students were working in classes that we call language classes. And students were happy because they were working with a native speaker, and they were sharing ideas with them. Another example of working like topics were vacation, were seasons, and clothing, because we wanted to choose that topics that maybe the students like and they were enjoying that. And they were also working with making handicrafts and also clothing by themselves, working with stuff or maybe materials they were not using before, and with that idea they were working. About this, so maybe we have another idea.
So they had actually there were 3 activity classes, no?
Yeah.
And as Veronica mentioned, and they switched around, so they were able to go to the different activity classes, so they didn't miss any of those. And the staff just chose those activities based on their strengths and their personal interests and the activities. And planned together. Every class had 2 people in it as well. Classes were small. They were the language classes were no larger than 15, and then the activity classes we combined them, and we recombined them so that they could meet other people. So they interacted. They weren't always with the same group of people every day. So the activity classes.
Yeah, it could be also, for example, Gisela is mentioned that. We can use Paco Yunque as a topic because you can talk about bullying in that activity. So you could choose that one of the classes would be about literature and include Paco Yunque there. Excellent, Gisela.
Paco Yunque. I don't know what that is.
Paco Yunque. It's a book.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, Steph, thanks. I'm learning something. And so then after they did their activity class, oh, they had lunch in between, didn't they? How did that work?
Ah, yeah, lunch were an amazing moment because they were exchanging not just in groups, but the whole population that they were in that camp. They were eating them by each other, maybe trying to see what they like, maybe sharing more bread or more things that they were exchanging. And the last day we had a kind of lunch, and the students prepared their own lunch by themselves. And they were happy because they were just friends, and maybe more than that, they were brothers and sisters because they loved that.
But what did they make on that last day?
A big and huge sandwich.
Oh, great.
Yeah, a lot of materials.
I think there's a picture later on about that.
Sure, we
Yeah.
have pictures.
So then after lunch, they had their last activity class, and then they went back to doing a debriefing and lesson plan.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're gonna talk about each of those in a little more detail.
Yeah, and don't forgetting the immersion.
Oh,
s'mores
yeah.
things. We have to prepare s'mores with the students.
Mm,
And I
delicious.
learned because I never tasted that before, and I was like, oh my god.
And the lunch, what kind of lunch was it? It was an American lunch, was it not? U.S.
Exactly.
Yes,
We
everything.
want to live in that culture, not the American culture. That's why we mix between pizza, maybe the other day was a sandwich, the other day was hot dog, and the other day was
Yeah, the only thing that we missed was the coffee because everything was American. The
All of
place,
them,
everything
yeah.
was American. I was breathing American air.
and you had an American lunch hour
Yeah,
too, right? How many minutes?
We're full of food, American food.
Yeah. Cool.
Next slide. Well, in that slide, you can see obviously what we were doing in photos. So the first photo shows the first step we have in that camp, that was the assembly. So students were together with the instructors, and we were doing activities, mixed activities to exchange ideas, to speak maybe for a while, and just know each other as a group. The following we have, Steph, look at this, smart, you remember?
Yeah, I remember this more. It was an amazing activity because you can teach the students how the Americans prepare this. Is that dessert, Debra? It's a dessert.
Yeah, it's a typical camp food that we
Yeah,
have.
it's a camp food. Yeah, because we have also a campfire, we have a tent, we have everything arranged to be a camp joy there.
Mm-hmm. And in that assembly, you see the other picture, all the people were together to try to be as a family, as we were maybe playing that music. We are family, so that's the idea, to start as a family, working together, helping each other, and then each group or individual groups were working in the special topics we were organized for them.
Yeah, the assembly was kind of a time to set the tone for the day, come together, and be all together as a whole group. And then, as you can see in the next slide, we moved into the language class. And these were very small. These were the smallest groups of the day, the language class and the debriefing class. And in that class, what we did with that class is we tried to set the stage and put graphic organizers. You can see one that has at the top of the page there, of the slide, that we filled out at the end of the day, actually. But every day we gave them a graphic organizer and set the topics for the day. So if we knew we were going to do clothing, and we knew we were going to travel, and we knew the vocabulary was going to be seasons, then we didn't use that particular graphic organizer. I think that one was about the environment.
Environment.
That was on the third day. But every day there was a graphic organizer, so we set the stage for that. We also asked them to in their journals, because they all had journals, we asked them to write down key vocabulary.
Yeah.
And the third thing we talked about, because our idea was to do lesson planning. So on the first day, we started out with, we want you to note strategies. And so in the assembly, they'd already had some strategies. In the language class, we did more getting to know you strategies and teamwork. You can go back to the language class. So we would we would have them set the stage for the activity classes that were to come. So the language class, that's how we would do. We had the 3 items. We had get the key vocabulary, do a graphic organizer, pick out the strategies as well in the class, and we'd also get to set up for the reflection in the afternoon and the lesson planning.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the students were happy because the whole day, or only one day, they were just having more than 5 strategies to work on. So they were so happy to have this kind of work.
So in the next slide,
it's about the activity classes. And as our friend Rolando is saying here, non-traditional environments help the learning. So in this kind of activities, it was not just working on the classes. There was a photo hunting, and they have to go outside the classroom with their mobiles, and students love using mobiles, and taking photographs of the whole nature. In this case, it was about garbage and all those stuff. And they, being in different places, it's better for them to learn. In this case, on the pictures, you can see there is a girl who is modeling kind of clothes. She signed this in the clothes activity that I was in charge of. And they had to prepare different kind of clothes. Depending, in this case, depending on the event, it could be, how to say, Thanksgiving Day, they have to prepare a special kind of cloth design, and they have to write a description like if they were in the red carpet, and they start modeling, and they were also producing writing skills, and they also producing orally. So it's perfect them to practice in this case. Another of the activities was also the 3R projects that they have to recycle. And you know, we were all of us saving carton, paper, plastic. Our houses were full of recycling things, and our parents were like, "What are you doing with this stuff?" But it was worth it because the students use all these materials, and they create not just materials of recycling stuff. They create materials to teach, because they could create, for example, a doll, and they can use this doll to teach body parts, for example, to the kids. And these activities are excellent for kids because they love doing painting, cutting, and talking about animals, and they can create this stuff. Next slide, please. Also, we can, in other of the activity classes, we had, do you remember what else we have in the activity classes?
Yeah, we work with the students outside, so outdoors, not just in classes, because you know, the environment also helps the students. So photo hunt was the other. So they were outside the class taking photos with their mobile phones. So according to the topic we selected, in that case were nature and environment. So they were taking photos about birds, maybe plants, trees, etc. And they were also increasing their vocabulary because many words were unknown for them. They're new. So they were searching, so what is that? And they were also reinforcing vocabulary and also working together as a group.
Yeah, you can see that kind of pictures on the next slide, because in the next slide we have then the pictures of the photo hunt. There you can see the students taking photographs with their mobiles, and they can use a simple stuff like a mobile that everybody has one, to learn a new word, to learn something new.
And also they did some poster sessions, they did some commercials, they also did global warming activities. And then after their activities class, on the next slide, they would do their debriefing every day. And the debriefing activities, they actually went through and filled out their graphic organizers, they debriefed the day, they took apart the activities that they learned. They listed those. They began on the second day with actual lesson planning. And the way we did that is we presented the lesson plan in the morning, the format. We gave them 3 different formats. And on the lesson, they were able to take that lesson plan, and in that lesson plan, they filled out what they had seen. What they had seen going on in the day. And then we would debrief that as a group. We looked at what the objective, what the learning activities were, what the evaluation was, and so how the reflection went. And then they had homework every night to reflect.
Yeah, full of work.
It was full of work. Full of work.
They were learning all the time.
So if you go on to the next slide, you can see that how all of that fit into. If you go back to the themes, our theme schools out, learning is in. We've taken you through kind of a basic day, and then every day was like that, but a little different with different topics. Mm-hmm. We don't have time to go through all of them now, because on the next slide you can see we had some challenges.
Yeah, not everything was kind of easy.
Veronica and Steffany will tell you.
All this stuff has pros and cons. I mean, obstacles that we have, and then we can, for the next time that you plan something, you take in consideration. Mm-hmm. Okay, for example, one of the problems were the location. We were at university, but also at that time there were another students who were having classes, and they were making a lot of noise. We couldn't do anything about that, but it was like kind of bad for this program in that space, yeah, because it was not a big problem. Another was
staffing. Yeah, so this point was also a challenge because we were together working before. You know, we had 6 sessions before together as a group, and we were trying to organize what are the needs, what are the material that we're going to use, what are the things we're going to use in each classes. So it was also a great challenge for us to try to work on. The next is food. You know, working the whole day immersion activity, it's like we are hungry, so we need to go to find maybe food. And in this case, it was, you know, American food, not just the food we have in hand. So American food, because we are living in that, in culture. So that's what the students also like, and we were working hard for that.
In the food, if I might interject, Debra here, the food is always a challenge because you're never going to please everybody.
Yeah.
Students only paid 20 soles for the week.
Yes.
So we had a really limited budget, and we had to give them water and drinks and snacks too.
A lot of things.
So it was really kind of a challenge, and then just getting people to do it here, to find people who could make authentic food. So,
authentic, yeah.
Pizza was really easy.
Yeah, it was easy.
Also the dates, because on summer, for example, some of the students, or these kind of students who wanted to be teachers, they were working, and they have to work till a time, and they have to go to our Immersion Institute. They have to run from one place to another, and they lose a lot of important classes there. It was a big problem, the dates and the time too.
Yeah, sure. And the last challenge also was technology. Say why? Because, well, the place we were working on, we're not able to have some maybe things we are using, like microphone maybe, or just the sign, or just the computer. So sometimes it's a challenge because we don't know the place is new. So we are trying to look for the things we are using. So we need to, in advance, take care of that, because maybe at the last, during the work or the workshops, we have problems with this.
Yeah, and before passing to our next slide, Frank is asking us if there is a problem, or if it's a problem to teach phonetics to our students. Is it difficult for Americans, and if it's difficult for Peruvians to teach phonetics to the students in Peru? Debra, in your experience, is it difficult to teach phonetics symbols?
Well, yeah, I think phonetics is always difficult to teach. Sure. Or I guess in this, we didn't really focus on any grammar or phonetic approach.
Yeah.
We tried to model, and I think more than trying to be correct in the grammar or correct in our pronunciation or even our phonetic, we were really trying to work on confidence with our students. And that's kind of some of the things you can see that we're talking about.
Yeah, this is what our students taught us. So a lot of things, we got thanks to that moments we lived with them. This is a picture shows the last activity about the lunch, or maybe the food they made by themselves. Yeah, we provide them for many materials like mustard, bread, etc. And they were doing by themselves the sandwich, and it was a big sandwich, and they were exchanging, and also the moment, and obviously eating the sandwich that was really delicious, they said.
Yeah, but by this time they were also connected. Yeah, they were friends there because at the beginning they were kind of shy, but in this time, as you see, all of them look like they know from years, and they were from different places.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, do you remember that?
Yeah, yeah, they really bonded after we.
Yeah. Okay, so
Some of the things they taught us on the next slide you can read.
yeah, one of our students on the next slide mentioned, for example, Dayan said, from the first day I felt really happy. Everyone here was kind. All these people made me feel more comfortable with my English. That was we were mentioning about not correcting and saying, no, you don't pronounce like that, or don't do that, because they were trying to talk and let them speak, even if they made mistakes, because they need to be confident talking with native speakers like Debra and Ryan, who was there, and with Peruvian ones. She also says that now she can say that she feels prepared to be a proud English teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So
on the next slide, also we have another idea that our student says that he's in. This is from the last event we had, and
Lima.
He says this experience was like being over the moon. It was meaningful. Teachers, co-facilitators, in one way, they are awesome. So this kind of opportunities make us grow as teachers, as humans, and also as a country. So it's a nice and a really important comment because we were sharing those because we love our career. And we love also working with the future teachers that we have.
yeah, we're trying to teach them kind of strategies, but we are not geniuses because we are always learning, and they also taught us a lot of new ideas. So, I came back with a lot of ideas from my students. How about you, Debra?
Okay, so on the next slide we put down, we went to from a 5-day to a 3-day. We want to just talk briefly about it. We are going to upload a YouTube with some of our students performing, but we didn't get that in there this time. But we did a 3-day residential program in Lima in May. And that was a totally different experience. We used a lot of the same ideas. We had less students. They stayed in a convent there, so we had a kind of a captive audience. And the students were handpicked from pre-service institutions all over the country. So they came from everywhere, which made for really a wonderful cultural experience because we were able to really look at our own culture,
Good environment.
the Peruvian and the U.S. and how many different changes there were within differences there are right here in our own Peruvian culture. So
even if they feel the first day homesick, they forgot about their places because they had a lot of fun. And even when they were having lunch, they were speaking in English the whole time, and it was awesome because we weren't there to modulate, to monitor them, and they were speaking in English, and it was wow.
And they had a longer day, and then they were together at night, and Verónica and Steffany were, along with another Evan from up north, were there with them at night. So they actually were able to use their English, which they did all the time at night. But we did a little different twist. We picked the best activities that we could think of from the other 5 days. But we also wanted to add another component, and we actually did more writing. And we also added a speech class, which turned out to be excellent. I've done it with high school students before. And so we actually had them, every student had to present themselves in front of the whole group. And we saw a lot of growth. But they had a class on how to do that, and we actually filmed them, and it was just amazing to see the transformation. Particularly one young lady who, in the speech class, because I had to do prepared and then spontaneous speaking, and she pulled out the topic, "My greatest fear is speaking in front of a group," and it was her greatest fear. And there was such a nurturing environment from the whole group. I mean, everyone cried. It was just a lot of laughter and a lot of tears in that group. So you can see, if you go to the next slide, that we have the 5 versus the 3 day. We have the pros and the cons of that. And some of the, we only put some of the pros and cons that you can see there. You can see that students had more time to, on a 5-day, they had a little more time to organize the different types of lesson plans and different activities. They had more time to process in between because they went home at night and they were able to warm that. We had also more topics and information to share, and as I mentioned, more processing time were some of the pros on the 5-day. Some of the cons, which we didn't put up on the 5-day, were that they did go home. They, as you mentioned earlier, they had distractions. They had schedules. They weren't always there on time. No. It wasn't as intense a situation. They went home and spoke English, Spanish. They didn't have the practice with each other. They didn't have instructors there at night. So that was one of the cons that they had, and also the location was a bit. Because we were spread out everywhere. We weren't as confined. So far. I mean, we didn't have breakfast, lunch, and dinner together. That was another con that we had there, and technology was mentioned. One of the pros of the 3-day institute was that the level of the languages I mentioned was very high. The residential setting and more time to collaborate at night, and there was such a rich intercultural exchange. Yeah, very rich. I mean, people were amazed that came from the northern part of Peru and the southern part. Some people had never been to Lima, so it was a whole different experience. Yeah,
they never traveled by plane.
Right. Yeah, they were so happy because it's my first time, like a group like this, and also traveling by plane. So we're wow, awesome.
It was like we're all on this, and they were all on the same playing field. So they all had to overcome some obstacles, and they all had to be together. And they bonded by the middle of the first day. Don't you think they were pretty bonded?
That's right. That's right.
But there was one of the downsides, and this came out in the student evaluations, because we did evaluations of staff and student. We do have a lot of data to share if anyone's interested. Was that there was less time for lesson planning and themes. And that the lesson planning, I think, is such a crucial part.
Yes, in 5-day workshop, for example, they were happy because they were having different styles and most different models of lesson planning. But in the 3-day, the other hand, well, they don't have too much time to do it. But as a teacher, they need maybe this sort to have, because as an English teacher, so we have another way to work in the classes. So what the Ministry of Education showed us is maybe not well for an English teacher. So these lesson plans were a good example for them, and nowadays I know that they are applying that.
Yeah, I've had a couple. Yeah, because you work with that pedagogical. Sure. That was the other idea of having the pedagogical that we could have a follow-up, that we could see what happened with the students. And some of them have come in and said, "We are using that strategy. Are you using that?" Actually, don't we have Jeremy on here?
He mentioned about the photo hang. He says he is already using that. So it's awesome for him.
And he was amazing for him, Jeremy. Hi, Jeremy.
And also Gisela says that these strategies are really nice. So Gisela says that, wow, it works, and it's from Trujillo, so Trujillo, Lima, and Arequipa. So we're working maybe the same, because we have the same expectations to let the students to speak. So that's what we want.
Yeah. I think too. One of the activities we did mention that our colleague in Tarapoto, Ryan, who was one of our star teachers, and my colleague was the American road trip they went on. They did a lot of writing they were able to do. But I would say that 3-day, the lesson planning, we needed more time. We needed more time, and then the expense, because we had people flying in, busing in.
This
the instructors came. All 5 of us had to come from somewhere else.
Arequipa, from Loreto,
and Tarapoto, and the house, and the food, and so just to give you an idea, the whole budget for the 5-day ran about $50 a student. Yeah. No, I'm taking that back. It was closer to, it was $2,000 for 65 students, so more like 120.
Wow.
And I'm sure that was. I'm sure the 5-day was a lot more than that.
A lot, sure.
But it was a very rich experience.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, Patricia so says that he's really glad to join because he says this presentation helped them. Sure. So we are happy also to share with these ideas with you because we are teachers and we never stop learning. She says again that.
Yeah, she agrees with us. We never stop
Yeah,
learning.
we like the techniques that we are using follow along with what William Butler said, that education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. And that's what we hope that we were able to do with our students. That they're the two things: that they're more confident in their English, that they have made some great connections as teachers, and
Think in English.
And think in English. You know, so we're really excited about that. We're excited to share this with you. If there are more questions, I want to go to the last slide just so you have our information. If you need to contact our contact information, we'll be happy to share because that's what it's all about in education, is sharing with each other. So on that last slide, you do have our contact information.
We can exchange ideas.
Yeah, help each other.
And we think our students that participated are doing that.
Yeah.
Right, sure. So also Rolando comment says, he makes a question, says, what would you say the role of social media is in the teaching and learning process? So,
wow. You have to do it. In order to teach them, you've got to reach them. And our students now are, even my age, I can't get through all of my stuff, my Facebook, my everything.
Part of our life, part of learning.
We actually, when the students had to present their teams, because they're teams, several of them got on the internet and researched. And they had to do their reports. So they did that. If we had more contact, more technology, we could have put in, and I've done this in other institutes, we could have put in a component where they would work with a group from the United States, students in the States, or contacts in the States, because I've done that in language institutes before. So I think the social media is really important because that's where our students are at, and if we tap into it and bring it into the classroom, or outside the classroom, actually. We don't always have that luxury in the classrooms. But we can extend so much beyond.
And they are in contact with that because they are in the pocket. They have just the cell phone or the mobile phone, so that's something they are using. And imagine all the sources they are going to use in classes.
Everybody has.
Sure.
Some tool too. So how to use it, because internet has pros and cons, but if it's education and you know how to use it, we as teachers have to model the students and direct the students how to use the technology in order to learn. Okay?
Sure.
Yeah.
That's it.
Definitely social media. I think if it's used properly, the writing, the production can be definitely.
To reinforce the skills, obviously, it helps a lot. Chatting, emails, and being in contact with the students or maybe just teachers abroad for other countries helps a lot. Not just chatting because of good fun, but maybe just use it as a methodological way, working and being better English teachers.
And I just really want to applaud my two colleagues here, Verónica and Steffany, because they really, I've seen them grow, I've seen them just go and do and take very strong leadership roles, and I see them carrying that on in their institutions with the students who have come back and commented on that. And so do we have any more questions? Anybody have any more questions or comments they'd like to share?
The comments were from around the country and also from Costa Rica, so thanks a lot.
There is one.
So thanks a lot for all of the people that were with us. Thanks and thanks.
Yeah, thanks guys. Thanks for listening and don't stop learning.
And don't be afraid to do one of these. If you really, it's fun. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of planning, a lot of coordination.
Yeah, you're going to have problems, but it's part of planning something new. So for the next time, it's going to be better and better.
And it's so much fun because when we finished, we are family.
This is the way him.
So thank you.
Thank you for the review.
Thank you.